This is the discussion between you and the drinks, which will bring the day to an end. So, building trustworthy digital services. And again, we've got a fantastic panel to talk about that. Some of them may wish to sprinkle anything that they've taken from the rest of the day through their answers as well. So, building trustworthy digital services. Trustworthiness will be essential if government wants to make the most of using data, technology and AI to deliver better policies and services. But many members of the public are understandably concerned about the use of sensitive data and untested tech. We've seen big failures like Horizon in the UK or Robodebt in Australia, and the government's focus on newer implementation approaches such as test, learn and grow and scan, pilot and scale means some things we try might not work. So how can government ensure services are trustworthy? How do we manage public expectations? What's the right way to fail? And how do we keep leaders focused on solving the underlying problems rather than getting distracted by the technological hype? We've got 5 brilliant panellists for this question. We've got Leanne Cummings, the Director of Gov.uk Products and Services from the Government Digital Service. Jennifer Anderson, who's the Chief Information Officer at the National Wealth Fund. Emily Ball, Deputy Director for Service Transformation at the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. Sue Morgan, who's Head of Digital and Technology at OPG Digital, that's the Office of the Public Guardian at the Ministry of Justice, and Nico Cellai, Head of Strategic Customer Engagement at the Home Office Accelerated Capability Environment. Again, I'll go to each of them for some opening thoughts on building trustworthy digital services or anything else you've heard today that you want to reflect on. We'll have a bit of a chat, and there'll also be an opportunity for questions and reflections from all of you. So, who'd like to kick us off? Nice, small topic, building trustworthy digital services.
So I was actually going to start by sort of pulling apart the title a little bit, so I don't know how helpful that is. But essentially, when I sort of saw this title initially, I thought, trustworthy actually means lots of different things depending on your audience. So when we talk about trustworthy from a government perspective, often what you mean is value for money or you mean efficiency. And when you talk about trustworthy from maybe a consumer perspective, from the general public, actually it means something very different. Specifically when AI is involved, it's about, the output, the quality of the output that we're getting, and about actually what's kind of gone into that process in the first place. So I don't know if that's a bit of a controversial start, but I don't know. And again, with digital service, it means something very different depending on your audience. So I think that's sort of where I wanted to start us.
Starting with a provocation, excellent.
I think that's part of being really trustworthy, isn't it? Is you don't just take anything for granted. When you're building a service, you don't think, we're building a digital service, it has this capability, it's on this platform, it's this. It's literally, we are all citizens. Would we want to use it? Do we feel that it would meet our standards of trustworthiness for ourselves when we're then building it for somebody else? So I think we absolutely should challenge everything. Pick apart every single word or assumption about anything we do, because ultimately trust is about we will do what we say we will do. And a lot of that is what we say and promise to citizens. Can we deliver it? Absolutely should challenge it.
I think, reflecting on that rather than what I was going to open with, but that's good. That lets me at this time of day. If you accept the connection between trust and digital confidence and reducing the digital divide and helping those who might feel digitally excluded to come in on these topics of building trust and inclusion. Just to restate some of Gavin's opener there, neither the citizen nor the state can afford to not build trust. I know that's an obvious statement, but because as that digital divide potentially grows, the citizens will not have as easy access as more and more moves online to cheaper tariffs, easier to use systems. So we have to build trust, and we, the state, kind of can't afford to kind of roll backwards from our pursuit of new technologies and efficiencies. We just can't afford it. So therefore, we have to make some incremental gains in trust. And I might come back to some thoughts on how to do that.
Jen Anderson here from the National Wealth Fund. So just touching on kind of what does a trustworthy digital service mean? There's the services that you use as a citizen of the country, but then there's also the services that we provide to our own internal organisations to make sure that they run and function. And, both of them generally need to be reliable. They need to be something that people know and expect to work, and that's something that absolutely keeps us busy, both in making sure that we can keep those services up to date, make sure that we can provide the information that is secure, that is right, that's correct. But also, you touched on it, making sure that we can adapt to the newest technologies, and we see this like with AI. So it's not just about building the services that are trustworthy, but it's about embracing new technologies, which can make our jobs incredibly difficult, because just as you think, aha, final full stop on that service, a whole brand new technology comes in, and we're like, right, how do we do this? And how do we make sure that we don't just do it in the right amount of money, but we do it making sure that we don't have any security issues, that it hits the InfoSec, it hits the budget, it makes sure that our brand reliability and all those things that we need to consider when building a digital service.
Hey everyone, you made it to the end of the day. I think that it's an interesting challenge. I'm building on Fab panel. It's an interesting challenge when we think about this new technology, because on the one hand, in terms of inclusion, things like chat products can really lower barriers to inclusion, easy language models, all of that. But on the other hand, and in kind of my role, where I'm thinking about the citizen-facing, personalised app and AI agentic experiences across gov.uk's platforms, we've got to kind of get into trustworthy digital services that you check. So you trust it most of the time, but we've also got to get users in the habit of ensuring that there's some responsibility, there's a relationship there that we're building. And that's a new and exciting challenge for us, I think, which we'll probably talk about a bit more.
I don't know where to start. There's so much stuff that we could dig into. I might pick up on something that Emily went towards, which was bearing in mind that we might mean very different things by trust and trustworthy. How do you build it? How do you earn trust, maintain it, build it?
So I think there's a couple of things about building trust. And part of it is that, because this is my specialist subject, but you really do need spaces for innovation. So you do need, when government are building digital services in general, spaces to try things and fail, probably in a sandbox outside of your, garden-walled environment. But you do need that ability to do that before you can build something that is trustworthy. I also think sort of expectation of the individuals in the general public of what we can achieve versus the budgets that we have, versus your kind of IBMs and your larger tech companies is quite substantial. So if you look at the kind of data, the type of kind of digital services that you use in a personal capacity, the service is like up here, and that is sort of what you're expecting when you come for government services. So that is a bit of a challenge as well. When we talk about trustworthy, we're also talking about, their expectation of what they think they're getting versus what we can deliver.
I think there's opportunities for us to leverage those relationships with the private sector, though, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think we do that really well across government, working in partnership with quite a lot of big tech. Just picking up on one other thing, though, I think that it's really hard. It's not a race and it's not a competition, but there'll be a vacuum. If we don't start filling, in my role, when I'm all about citizen-facing services, if we're not filling that vacuum, then either big engines will be, or third-party private sector companies will be. We see it a little bit in driving tests, right? Like that's just the tip of a much larger iceberg about we're just going to get all the school places, we're going to get all of the benefit, all of that. We do need to, yes, absolutely, manage our budgets beautifully and stay in front of things, but also across all of the citizens' experience, they are experiencing AI and more agents. And if we're not part of that, then that's a real challenge for us.
One of the things we've done is the amount of user research as we go through, which I know all services do, and it's posing those questions recently, because one of the services that we do at the Office of the Public Guardian is a lasting power of attorney. That's people talking about the potential to lose mental capacity. It's a really weird and personal subject, and I deliver the digital services, and I don't feel I'd be comfortable talking to my nearest and dearest about that.
Right.
But the amount of time we've spent with people learning how they respond to those conversations has helped us build and reflect that in what we do, because I think that's absolutely the point. If we don't do it, other organisations are going to see how they leverage into it. We've embraced working with Age UK and people like that because we want them on side. But if they were to go off and do something on their own, there is then that element of we would be out of step and we would have a less trustworthy offering than some third party who tries to understand the user better. So I think you're quite right. We need to be in that field with other people before they beat us.
Yeah, I think what's great across government as well is learning from other departments' successes. So, you know, something that, you know, as you mentioned, you know, a lot of people is, you know, fail fast, get your sandboxes, but also reaching in and learning when someone has built a service that's been really reliable or really trustworthy, and making sure that you're sharing that, or also, you know, GDS are great at, you know, providing advice and making sure that, you know, different government departments and arm's length bodies are following the right standards. You know, they've recently brought in that secure by design, making sure that, you know, the services that we are providing are secure, and that's security first. And that is a huge part of trust, is making sure that people feel comfortable that their data that they're providing is secure and is looked after.
Yeah, I mean, I can refer off those, if you like. My anchor point in the T shape is hopefully user-centered, easy to use, inclusive designs for systems and patterns that you were talking about, and standards, and how we build on them. And thinking about something that Christine said right at the start of the day about collaboration across government and how it's really quite hard. But if we don't do the hard work to collaborate, what I would call behind the scenes, this then seeps into the front end of our services, I think. And that is a key to trustworthy services. You can see it in many services because one of the privileges in the digital centre is you get to see lots of services come through assessment and the like. Where there's been compromise between operations, policy, and like digital development, which of course there has to be, but all in pursuit of a slightly different outcome, that then creates slightly complicated front ends of systems. And I think that's where we see like some trust slip as well around like the usability of those services. And why are you asking these questions? There's like, they don't seem to make any sense. So we can think about design tools and techniques, just like back to basics really of good system and service design to help build that trust. Because I think sometimes if the collaboration hasn't been as successful behind the scenes, and we maybe haven't made some of those good decisions Christine was talking about, it shows in that user kind of interface as well. And we can use those citizen-facing services to be quite transparent, I think, around what we're doing. So if a service is using AI, or if decisions are automated or assisted in some way, I think we should be really transparent about doing that and being really clear on the right to recourse on that as well. Like, what was your decision to receive or not this benefit, made or supported in any part by AI? I think that we should be transparent about things like that as well.
One of the key themes, I think, and it came across in the first sort of 2 sessions we had this morning, was around collaboration. And then there was a bit of a debate about what collaboration actually meant. Lots of kind of people just telling each other what they're doing rather than kind of genuinely collaborating. At the accelerated capability environment, we do sort of proof of concepts across the whole of central government, and we do those around kind of data and AI and lots of technology aspects. And actually what we need to get much better at is kind of sharing that information in a really tangible way that can then be utilised by other departments and create at least thought or discussion around those areas. And at the moment, I think we've done some way to that by kind of creating case studies of what we've done, and they are available, but it needs to be much more ingrained. So when we've got a topic that we know that one department is spending some money on looking at, what we really want to do is bring together all the other departments that might be vaguely interested in that particular topic and actually share that kind of process of what we're doing, you know, so they can understand. And then essentially what you'd hope is they then take that away and build on it. So that's kind of the ideal of what you're looking for in collaboration, I think, you know, and that's kind of shared learnings. Because I would say one of the things in government, across government departments, and also sometimes in government departments, that we're not the best at is about sharing some of those technology learnings from our proof of concepts, from our early stage work. And it does sometimes, some of that work that you're doing, it will take a couple of years to sort of come back round into something. Someone might pick it up a year later and go, actually, that was a great idea. It's good that you sort of got this far. I'm now going to take this, you know, into something that we think is useful. So there is something across, you know, on the tech side, definitely getting sort of tighter at that and sharing that kind of information as well, which would give us a much better kind of ability to then create some of those trustworthy digital services.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite interesting because we talk about trustworthy, and I think, you know, as a whole, the UK does a good job in ensuring that we do provide these services. But when, we tried to bring in the digital ID cards, one of the things was that whole trust. I don't know, I found that as someone working there, I was trying to wonder where that perception came from, because actually, as a whole, if you look at it, there's not been a huge level of breach of trust. I think the services that go out are solid. I think they're improving all the time, and so it's interesting to try and pick apart where that public perception of the lack of trust would come from, and perhaps it's just more around how do we give that certainty that their data is secure with us.
But you also think about other sort of digital services that they do trust, right? So my mum calls me every morning to tell me exactly on her Fitbit how many hours to the minute she slept. She 100% believes it and based her entire mood for the day, based on this digital service and information. And my 13-year-old daughter regularly looks at the weather app to decide what items of non-school uniform clothing she's going to be wearing that day. And she trusts it completely, so goes out of the house without a jacket, and then various items which definitely do not reflect, anything I've read in the school pamphlet. There is trust in other digital services that they're using all the time. So maybe how we can attain that level.
Does she then find herself dressed for the wrong weather? She trusted the app. She'd come home drowned or something because it had a right...
she's quite strong-minded, so I think she just sort of sees it through, so she did make the right decision.
She wouldn't let you know that she'd been hoodwinked by digital services.
Oh, no.
What does building that trust with different users look like? Because, again, we've got we've got older people, we've got younger people, we've got people inside the department, we've got people from different professions within the civil service, we've got different departments, we've got different members of the public with different political perspectives. How do you approach such a wide range of users with the same service?
I'm going to say it's difficult when you're trying to secure internal services because there is an element of friction to that. So I think in a lot of ways when you're trying to ensure that services are set up correctly, or making sure that systems are there, that there can be an element of you can't do exactly what you want. You have to work it the right way, and I just think there's that change management and that making sure you're educating the users into why you're doing it and why this is happening. So I guess when it comes to adding that additional security, although it can be frustrating, is making sure people are understand why, and it's not just people doing this to be awkward or annoying, or it's just another, they've put an extra additional layer of MFA. Well, maybe just explaining what defence in depth means so people understand why you're doing it.
And the benefits, maybe, as well. I don't think we've had... You were just saying before in your previous comment about perceptions, like why is there this perceived distrust in all those many groups? And we do consultation and we do user research, but it doesn't get that deep, I would say. So we can understand better those perceptions and views on things. And I don't think we've had a really robust conversation about the benefits either. We haven't proven it enough through incremental gains as well of the benefits and those perceptions about data sharing and joining up services as well. Because it's the other side of the coin as well. So on one hand, trust and kind of satisfaction. We know from the state of the digital state, user satisfaction in the UK with government services has been declining. People want personalised services. They don't want to spend so much time online on government services if they already are online. But in order to deliver them, those joined up personalised services, we need to do some architectural stuff behind the scenes. Do they trust us to do that? I'm not sure. So we need to have a discussion, I think, based on the benefits and education.
And just picking up on the benefits. So we're at national scale in gov.uk, so we do a lot of work with cohorts to make sure that services, but generally we're at national scale. We've been recently doing some testing with agents. You'd imagine I'm sure everybody on the panel, I'm sure all the people in the audience are thinking about this too. And we're thinking about patterns and safety and security, and that's a given. That's the first step, is your data is going to be safe, you're going to be in control of it. The user testing, this is anecdotal, so nobody write it on your Insta books, but the user testing that we've done is showing that they breeze through the data like, cool, I'm in control of my own data. Where they'll share more is when they'll see the outcome. So if you can say, if you share this piece of data with me, government can then do that, it's almost like I can't press the button quick enough. So, and I think that that move to transactional, more transactional experiences is one that we all going to have to grip. Because like in gov.uk, historically, the most amazing website in the world, obviously, but you go to it, you ask it, it's all on you. It's very, very reactive. We're moving now into a different space, and that's an expectation that's being built up by citizens and users every day in everyday transactions. So I think we do need to get very comfortable with trade payoff. This is what the outcome's going to be. And I think that's a really big part of trust as well, is being really clear about outcomes.
I spent most of my career in the private sector.
Yeah, me too.
So building services that, you know, invariably, I mean, the reason I came back to government is because I got sick of dark patterns of trying to get people to
upsell.
But that reciprocity of give us your data, you get this benefit, is something we don't lean into. I think it is probably something that, as we go forward, we will become more astute with, and gov.uk is, as our shop window to the world for all our digital services, the fact that you guys are doing that, and all that agentic AI, and you know, you're looking at this, but obviously that means we can also tell you that you probably need to know about, you know, if you're doing a lasting power of attorney, actually you should probably also be looking at, you know, wills or, you know, estate planning or land. All of those things coming together is driving those behaviours that use the best of what the private sector's done, don't use the nasty and that we just want all your money. This is about a beneficial way. And I think the trust comes from, if people think you and I are building services that look out for you, then maybe you'll be like, oh, you know, the government actually does want to help me rather than just steal my data.
There's a tiny risk in that in gov.uk, and you might find that across your departments too. We did a test of gov.uk chat, which is essentially a chat GPT product, a couple of years ago. It was the first one we did with real live people that weren't us and our families. And the results were really, really clear. And the results were that everybody that tried it, we asked them the question, do you trust the answers? And over 80%, like, yeah, it's gov.uk, of course we do. If that number had been 3%, I'd have pushed it out onto the gov.uk website. If 3% of people said, I'll give it a go, but I'm probably going to double check the answer. But the fact that they were like, totally, it's government, I'll totally trust it. You're a bit like, So then we spent a decent amount of time thinking about patterns and thinking about risk and the things you'd imagine we were thinking about. But it's interesting that it's also a bit about maintaining trust and making sure that that's a thing as well as building.
Sort of add to that, right, and just say this might be controversial, particularly for this audience, but I think the other challenge that we get to, so when we're doing our kind of user research piece, right, is we basically ended up being a little bit drowned sometimes by the vocal minority or the what-ifs. So in government, because we are also dealing with the general public, which includes vulnerable people, and in many cases we've got services which everybody has to access, like there is no competition or another option for them, we really do have to think about that broad spectrum, but sometimes I think it drowns any kind of progress that we have, and, you know, like it basically stops us because we're like, but what about, you know, that one guy that doesn't have access to the internet? We better create this entire paper service that will maintain going, which means people will still use it, even though actually, you know, the digital service is much more trustworthy, reliable, and efficient. And I think it's a real concern, and we have to think about that in a bit more detail as we go forward. And like my background before kind of government sector was in the charity sector, and I worked on kind of fundraising. So how can we get more money to do more great things for children? You know, I was working at the NSPCC. And one of the kind of conundrums we came up with was like, right, if we do a fundraising event, we've got to have every different type that they could possibly give us money, because that's how we're going to make the most amount of money for children. And somebody might not have a card, you know, they don't want to do tap to donate, they're suspicious of technology. Let's make sure we've also got a bucket, and we've got and by doing that, your cost to process those financial transactions, particularly like going to get an entire service which has to be constantly running to count coins, essentially, your cost is much higher than the money that you're actually getting, and therefore the benefit for children. So in that context, it's much better to just say, look, we're going to do £5 tap to donate. If people don't like it, they don't have to do it, or they don't have a card on them, great, we'll lose that person. But ultimately, we're going to make more money across the activity that we're doing. And sometimes, I know this is controversial, but I think government genuinely needs to take that approach of what is the greater good I mean, that's right out of Harry Potter. But like, what is the thing that we're actually trying to achieve for the majority of the public? Can we do that? And can we actually move away from this thing where we sort of panic about, and create these sort of gaps of indecision where we can't move because we're worried about all the other things that we might switch off?
Yeah, I guess, the big question we would say is, why do people trust Mark Zuckerberg with their data, but maybe don't with government data? I mean, that is a big fundamental question we're talking about, because people will jump on Instagram and, Facebook, well, probably not very many young people, but, all these services, they're literally being tracked the entire time. And there is, you mentioned about your daughter with the weather, there's no thought about it. But how do we get that trust that they have in these other technology services into government? And I think that's a question we probably need to look at how we answer that.
I don't know.
Oh, right.
I look like I'm about to jump in with like this. Maybe we help turn the dial. Like, it's a cultural thing, particularly in the UK. Again, in the digital centre, and hopefully you guys too. We're fortunate enough to be able to go and meet like Estonia and Latvia and other countries that are introducing digital ID and understand, but they don't have some of the blockers on that we have, or some of the challenges we have around trust and that culture angle. But as well as benefits, I think we also show through like the consultations and through the design and the approach, right? The approach ongoing, because these are big services, national level services. We show responsiveness to those concerns, I think. That's why I meant, like, I don't necessarily have all those answers yet, but as we listen and then respond to that with, I don't know, it could be features, it could be explanations as well. A question I have, sort of back to us, because I don't know the answer, is how much of the workings should we show? I'm not sure if that would help or not. We talked throughout the morning as well about having people you can go to explain how something works, like a tech arc or a DevOps. And if it's an issue of trust, would explaining the workings out better help? At lunch, I was talking to some colleagues around Run Login, and they had lots of questions about how it actually works, and I wonder if that would help build trust if we gave a better explanation of how a thing works. That wouldn't reach all those audiences you necessarily listed out.
I think that's dangerous.
Okay.
I think too much information. I think people say that they always say that they want more information. I'm not sure they do. But that's also quite a controversial opinion. I'm not sure.
But I mean, that's also where some of our other, like, non-technical people come in. Have you got good interaction and service designers? Have you got good content designers, so that they can, through tone of voice, make something that gives people, sort of the reassurance, that actually we know and understand where they're coming from. The service isn't, a lot of educated, technically competent people have built this service, therefore you use it. It's actually something that's intuitive to the user, so they were far more likely to use it, gain a good experience, if we put it that way around. So I think there's a lot of people within our structure, more so than just us, who are, influencing at a more senior level, that can help.
I'm going to go to the audience at this point. I mean, we could carry this conversation on for a while yet, I think. Any hands that people want to put up? I can see a hand right there, and I can see another one there. We'll send the microphone to both of you. As the microphone is coming to you, just to say the two most upvoted questions on Slido, one of which you've already touched on. There's a lot of mistrust about how government is using our data. How is the panel handling this within your departments? And then there's another one, which is, how do you recommend ensuring teams are meaningfully integrating ethical frameworks into the design of digital services? For example, the data and AI ethics framework. So I'll put that to you as a sort of one question, and then we'll take the two from the audience.
So we've done quite a few sort of proof of concepts. Or do you want to do the audience first?
We'll just take the audience ones to throw in,
Yeah.
and you can choose which ones you want to answer.
Oh, yeah. I'm not in technology. This is quite controversial as well, Nico. Do you think sometimes we ask for too many opinions in order to improve services, and a lot of the people who respond are the ones who are going to give the negative? And also, linking into that, what you said, Leanne, about the maintaining the trust, I suspect a lot of the government services have lost trust this year, last year, because of everything that went on with cyber attacks and things like that. So it is about maintaining it as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And let's take the other question that we had there as well.
I'm not going to remember these. You can remember them all.
Yeah. I'll try.
Thank you.
So it's more of a musing than a question, I guess. It's just around the question. Is it a trust question, or is it kind of a lack of like coherent product offering kind of issue in terms of people don't really have an issue exchanging their data for medical care, for instance. So the NHS is absolutely awash with data, no one even questions it. Similarly, people go on Facebook, hand over what they need for a product offering. So is it more to be more pointed about this is what you're getting for whatever perceived value of data that they're exchanging, rather than a trust issue?
So just to remind everyone that the sort of final round of questions, and feel free to answer as many or as few as you would like. We've got the ones around data handling in your departments, thinking about public mistrust of that, and how you build in ethical frameworks to that work. We've got the are we listening to too many voices, and the sort of impact of cyber attacks as well. And then we've got the is this less about trust and more about coherent product design?
Can I start with that one first? I thought you were going to go somewhere else, but I agree with you. I think that question for me is building trustworthy digital government. So it's not about transactional level services. And the more we develop AI and agents and personalization, it's going to be less about, I'm Leanne, I'm applying for my new passport. And it's going to be more about, hi, I'm Leanne, I'm applying for my new passport. This is other things that I should be doing, because we'll know that. But I agree with you entirely. And I also agree on the NHS. I think there are two really different relationships that citizens have, one with the NHS and one with the rest of government being reductive. But there's definitely loads of learning to be done there. But I agree with you entirely. That's what I want to say.
So there's a couple of different questions there. So on the AI ethics, we do proof of concepts, right, which are high risk in terms of like the Daily Mail test. So will it end up in the Daily Mail, if it goes wrong? And so we do work with ethics committees across various different government departments. So that is something that we really do think about in terms of, and ethical questions are always like the volume of data and the type of data, and are we using it responsibly? And so, yeah, so those things do go into, even at really early stage sort of proof of concept, they are definitely there. On the question about are we asking too many opinions? So I bet there are people on the panel that are better kind of qualified in user research stuff, which is basically kind of how we go out, which isn't my kind of field of expertise. What I would say is sometimes we ask questions in a way to generate certain answers. Like if anyone's seen the staff survey, do you know of any department that they're in? The questions are quite loaded and specific, so they're not really designed, in many cases to get like the sort of breadth of opinion that people might want to give. So I think sometimes we probably do channel people down certain avenues, and we probably do try and take a broad spectrum. But I think where it's most debilitating is when you've got a really good case and you've got good user research to go forward with something, and then somebody goes, oh, but what about this one type of customer, or this one vulnerable individual that we really haven't thought of, and therefore we can't transform the service in any way. We better just keep it the way it is. And that, for me, you get lots of kind of like where you see that really badly is when you've got 45 people doing quality assurance and only 5 people working on a product, and it's like, what have you done, And so there's a few places like that where it does sort of stagnate a bit, and we do need to be careful.
I'll say one funny thing, you've triggered me on the Daily Mail. So on my CV, there is this. So we've been on the front page of the Telegraph because one of the first chat products we were testing all of a sudden started speaking perfect French. I can't speak French, but I'm told absolutely perfect French. And that made the front page of the Telegraph, government chatbot speaks French. So, and it did. That wasn't even a fib. It had tripped on I think like English as a foreign language, it tripped on an acronym and it suddenly spun into French. So it doesn't do that anymore. But yeah, front page of the Telegraph. Beat that.
The question is always like, how tight do I have to be with the press office when I'm working on this? Like, what do I need to brief them on?
And do you know who outed us was a minister? Because nobody knew that until the minister was like, this funny thing happened. And it was like, brilliant.
I don't think I would have predicted, and it spoke in fluent French, something I needed to brief anyone on.
I think they're all good questions, but I think the too many opinions one is one that we struggle with a lot in the MOJ, because the criminal justice system that we are part of is the victims, it's the alleged perpetrators, it's the convicted perpetrators, it's judges, it's all of these people. And some of the things that we've built where it will go across the criminal justice system, it'll go to local authorities and the police, if you canvass and market research opinions, you will get far more information. You have a paralysis because you can't design a service because this is contra to this, and nobody is going to get value for that. I think the benefit I see from really good user researchers is when they're embedded in a team and they're deciding based on the tasks that we've given a team to build, and they will be able to take all of those different groups and actually as a team, you know, sort of I've been doing Agile for so long that I'm very much about, you know, sort of Agile multidisciplinary teams. The team is in charge of what their outcome is. A lot of the time when you see that user research structured, they are then pulling together the themes that go across everyone. And it is, to your point, there are, you know, sort of user research done well is an asset. And that is where I think the trustworthiness is coming, because they will appreciate all of those different voices, and there will always be compromise. You can't build a system that is everyone's favourite friend. This is where I think some of where you see in sort of across non-techie people, their assumption of AI is going to build something that is unique and wonderful to me, and also unique and wonderful to every single person in this room. It's not. It's always, all technology is compromised, and I think get as many opinions as you can, but have the right people looking at those opinions when you're building services.
And where you can, some live testing.
Yes.
You can, moving it from, like bootstrapping user research to every feature development is going to slow you all the way down. So where's your biggest jeopardy on some of your biggest, most jeopardatious, that's not a word, cohorts?
I think it should be now.
It should be a word.
Jeopardatious.
And user research that hard, and everything else, where possible, live testing to add both the qual and the quant is critical, especially in spaces where you're talking about emotional subjects, like trust.
I'm happy to take the cyber question. So, you know, the risk of cyber attack is actually increasing. One of the joys of AI is that it's actually made cyber attacks easier for cyber criminals. So when we're trying to secure our digital services and our digital estates, we know now that it is happening more and more frequently. And there is a cost to securing it, and we're all working in government and budgets are tight. You know, the easiest way to be totally cyber secure is to not let anyone do anything, right? But that's not really a very realistic service. So you're always going to have this push and pull. But I think government is very, very aware of the impact that, you know, as you mentioned, a cyber attack can have on trust, and about ensuring that we, as we build out services, both the departments and the arm's length bodies, are looking at making sure that we aren't putting services out that do have security risks in it. But it is a cost, unfortunately, and it is about, you know, ensuring that software is upgraded and end-of-life and applications, and that is a huge task. That is just kind of almost like keeping the wheel spinning without putting the shiny, nice stuff on top of it, and that does have a huge challenge for us.
I guess picking up on frameworks, not just ethical frameworks, but maybe, I mean, the Digital Centre provides a series of frameworks, standards, kind of best practice patterns to try to help service owners, product managers across government build trustworthy services. We've got the tech code of conduct, code of practice, sorry. We've got Secure by Design that you mentioned, the service standard. We have the algorithmic, can never say it, reporting service as well. The AI ethics framework too. In a way, that's a lot of actual documentation to kind of cross-check. And we are actually doing a discovery at the moment on how might we put an AI front on that, so all of that library of guidance is more interrogatable from different perspectives as well. If you're looking at something from an engineering perspective or from a research perspective, like what is best practice? And all those documents are based on research and gathering best practice from across services and government. So yeah, from the perspective of my organisation, the Digital Centre, we should be providing out guidance in those frameworks.
I think one of those things, and to your point as well, is it's not just our responsibility. When I'm speaking with the CEO of my organisation about what we're building, a big part of our feature development is going to be the secure service. It's not 100% of every team is going to be building something that, you know, goes to the citizen. A good 30% of every sprint, I think, for all of my teams is secure by design work, patching, anything of that sort. And that they need to care about that as much as we do.
I'm afraid I'm going to end it there. I'm going to ask our panel to stay on stage while I do a couple of minutes of parish notices. But before I do, a massive thank you to Leanne, Jen, Emily, Sue and Nico. Thank you very much.